Hey, welcome to JG3 Reviews. My name is James, and I review a lot of fountain pens. And in reviewing those pens, sometimes I don't show you how those pens were filled with ink. And so a friend of mine emailed the other day and said, hey, I got this pen that you mentioned, and how do you fill it with ink? And I thought, you know, I should do a video on that and share with people how you fill the different kinds of pens with ink. Fountain pens have a lot of different filling mechanisms, and if you get into retro fountain pens, even more than what we're going to cover here today. Instead, I'm going to show you kind of the several of the most common fountain pen filling mechanisms and how you fill them with ink. And so let's just dive in. We'll do these one at a time and show you how they work. All right, we're going to start with what is probably the simplest way to get into the fountain pen world, and that is with a pen that uses a cartridge or a converter. And the simplest of those two is the cartridge. So this is a platinum preppy, and I'll put a link to the review of this pen up above, but it is a wonderful, inexpensive fountain pen that's a great starter fountain pen. And it fills in two different ways, well, really three. You can do this pen three different ways, and I'm going to show you all three through the course of this video. The first is the absolute simplest, and this is where most people are going to start. And this is an ink cartridge, and you'll notice that this one has a ball bearing there, and that goes, once you have installed this, that bearing will pop down into the cartridge and agitate the ink as you use the pen. It just keeps the colors all good and mixed up and flowing well. So, and helps to prevent drying out through the movement of all that. So, all you do to get ink into a pen that uses a cartridge, so simple. You push this in and you'll see this one's clear, which helps. A demonstrator is a great starter pen because it helps you learn what's going to happen. When you push the cartridge in, the feed has an ink channel here, and it will actually puncture into, it'll press that bearing and go into the cartridge. You just push it there until it snaps. That's it. Your pen is now loading with ink. You'll notice that the pressure from the cartridge pushed ink already into the fins, and you'll set this aside for a little while. And I usually let mine sit for an hour or two when I first install a cartridge like that, but some only take minutes. It just varies by the pen. But you do that, set your pen aside for a little bit. When you come back, it will be ready to write. It is that simple. So this is the kind of filling mechanism that if people tell you, oh, fountain pens are messy and you're going to get ink all over your fingers, you notice I don't have any yet, but I probably will by the time I'm done. They tell you that this is the mechanism you can use that is just plug and play. It is so easy. Now, you might be asking, if it's that simple, why do people use other ways? Well, here's the reason. You notice these bottles of ink back here. You start collecting once you get into the fountain pen world. One of the things that will happen is that you'll start collecting bottles of ink, different colors. This is a dark green from Pelican. This is a midnight blue from Noodlers. Why I took that away where you couldn't see it, I don't know. And this is a J. and this one I got for Christmas, and that's a brown. I like a brown ink now and then. And you just get different colors. I've got Noodler's Apache Sunset in a vac-filled pen. I'll show you how to fill a vac-filled pen here in just a second. You start collecting those and you think, wow, how do I do that? What if there's an ink that doesn't come in a cartridge? That's when you get a converter. And for example, this platinum preppy, you can get a converter which will allow you to choose different colors of ink. And that's when you say, okay, James, that's nice. What in the world is a converter and how do I fill that? Well, this is your lucky day because I just happen to have a Wing Sung that has a cartridge that needs to be filled. This is a new to me pen. I have not tried it yet at all. I'll review it. It'll probably be weeks from now. I like to use a pen for weeks at least before I do a review and really get to know how the pen writes and whether it's reliable or not. And so that's what I'm going to do with this pen. But today, it's going to be a demonstration of how to fill a pen with a cartridge. Let's see here. This has a screw-on cap, so you open the pen up, and inside it has a cartridge. And this is one of the things that I appreciate, if you've watched my reviews, you know this, about Chinese pens, is that they generally include an international standard cartridge. Some other pens, you have cartridges available, a lot of other pens from Japan and Germany, France, America, but most of those companies are going to charge you extra, and sometimes, like in the case of the Platinum Preppy, that I just put the cartridge in, the converter may actually cost you twice as much as the pen itself. And that's because this pen is, I didn't even pay $4 for this, and the converter can be $6 to $8 depending on where you buy it. So I don't have one for that pen, just because I don't need it and I don't have it. I've been refilling cartridges in that pen with a syringe, which we'll get to here in just a little bit. But first, before I get ahead of myself, this is a converter pen. And the converters snap in exactly the same way. Sometimes you'll get a pen that the converter, in fact, this one was separate and in its package, or you buy it separately, depending on how it comes. And so how do you put that in? Well, it goes in just like the converter. It's just a press fit. You do want to make sure that is securely pressed in. Don't push so hard you break anything, but pressed in so that it gets a good seal, because that will affect how well the ink flows later on. That's true of a cartridge as well. I should have said that a little bit earlier. But you just press that into the pen. And then filling it is really a fairly straightforward thing. So let me open up the bottle of ink and I'll show you how it fills. Okay, one advantage of having a lot of ink around is that while you're changing the camera setup a little bit and opening up the bottle, you can change your mind and decide on a different color. So I'm going to fill this one up today with a Pelican blue. I really like, it's just a standard color blue. It's a reliable ink. It seems to work well in every pen I've had it in. And so what you're going to do is you're going to put the pen, put the nib in, and go on up. I know you'll think, oh, I don't want to mess up the grip section here. Don't worry about it. Get it in there so that you make sure that you fill the ink. You may, with some bottles, depending on how full they are, need to slant the bottle a little bit. I think this will get plenty of ink without doing that, hopefully, so that I can show you well. You screw this down to get the air out, and you can do that before you put it in the bottle. And then, if I can keep my hands out of the way so you can see what to do, you simply turn that again, bring that piston up, and it will bring the ink with it. Now, you can do this more than once, and it will usually fill that up. I'm not going to bother. That's plenty of ink for what I want to do with this pen. But you can do that multiple times and get that air out, and maybe if I tilt the bottle, I would get that out even a little bit easier. Let me get a little paper towel here. And then you simply get that out, and a little bit of that ink in there. Stay and clean your grip. I mentioned there'd be a little bit of ink there, and that's it. You're good to go, and no casualties, right? So nothing to be intimidated by. It's a great system. That actually is, for me, it's just kind of one of the simplest ways to fill a pen once you get past a cartridge. So that's how you fill a pen with a converter. Okay, let's look at another filling mechanism. This is a pen I reviewed a while back, and this is the Hero 616 Doctor. Very, very inexpensive pen, just absolutely ubiquitous throughout China. And really, I don't know, maybe it's just the one I got. Some people really like them, some people don't. More who seem to than don't, but hey, very inexpensive pen, and mine writes very, very well. And this has a different kind of a filling mechanism. This one is pretty much built in, because what it has is, you notice the metal converter, and that's just the exterior of the converter. And this part can be removed for cleaning the pen, although you really don't have to. And what you do is you press in on this bar. This pen is empty. You press in on this bar, and it compresses either a rubber or silicone sac. This looks like silicone. And that, of course, then when you press down and release, it creates a vacuum. You do that inside the ink bottle, and the ink just flows right up into it. Now, this is another one where you actually want to do that compression several times to fill the sack. It's not my favorite, but it does work, and it's time tested. Lots of pens use this. Old Parkers and other pens, vintage pens, use this mechanism. Been around a very long time, and it works well and has proven itself over and over again. So all you do on this one, as I said, is you put it, just like any other, down in the ink, and then you press on that bar, and you just pump that pen full of ink. Now, I'm not going to worry if it gets totally full today, but that's how you do that. Now, this one is a hooded nib, and as you can see, for whatever reason, I find that this particular black ink does tend to grab onto the grip. Let me clean that up off camera right quick, so I just don't have to reach around the camera so badly. That one requires a little bit more cleaning if you want to avoid ink all over the place, but you know, not really messy in terms of ink coming into the cartridge or anything like that, which you can now see in there. Just for whatever reason, it seems like when I fill a hooded nib up in this particular ink, it really likes to cling to the outside of that. And that's it. That's done. Not complicated at all. Very simple mechanism. Pretty reliable. And so that is an Aerometric converter pen. And some pens use those that are removable. The Pilot Metropolitan, an excellent starter pen, comes with an Aerometric converter. Now this is when I get ink on me, right? When I'm closing up the bottle. Okay, let's look at a different kind of a pen. This is a Wingsung 3013, and it is a vac-filled pen. These are very popular, the Wingsung 3013. TWSBI, the TWSBI Vac and Vac Mini. Well, I nearly got one of those, but I don't have one yet. But I came close a few months ago. These operate with a different mechanism. It's a vac, just as the name says, a vacuum-filled pen. And you don't disassemble the pen like you do some others in order to get in there. There's not a converter inside. There is just a reservoir, a very large ink reservoir that you can see because this is a demonstrator. And all you have to do is turn this, and some pens you'll have to pull this out and then turn. But this particular model, you simply turn this counterclockwise, several turns, and then you'll pull this out, right? That doesn't pull the ink in. That might be what you would think. There'll be a little bit of a pull, but that's not the deal. What happens is you pull this out, and of course that does pull some ink in, but then you push it back down, and it's going to come to a part of the pen that's wider. Can you see that? Maybe my finger, if I move it. You can tell inside that the chamber opens up a bit wider. Well, when you do that, of course, it loses its seal right here on purpose, and that vacuum that's been created just pulls ink in pretty quickly and fills up your pen. So let me open up that bottle and get set up, and I'll show you how this works. All right. So just like any other pen, you're going to stick it down into the ink, and I think I'm probably going to have to tilt that a little bit because I use a lot of this green ink, right? But what you'll do is, we'll try it without picking it up first. You pull this up, as I said, like that, and then, I am going to tilt it. When you push it down, watch this. It just fills the pen up. So even though this is, pens like this are a little bit more visually complicated, you could look at that and say, oh, I don't know about that. I think I might stick with a cartridge. It's really very simple and very fast, and that's a lot of ink. Now you could do that again and probably get the pen a little bit fuller. Again, I'm not going to bother doing that today. I don't worry about that too much. But some people really, they want to take advantage of every last drop they can get in there, and so you would do that again. I'm going to clean this one up as well, and now that pen too is ready to go. And it's just a very simple mechanism, and what I like and what a lot of people like about that is you end up with a pen with a lot of ink in it. I'm not going to have to refill this one for a while. The last pen another Wingsung 3018 like that. I haven't had to refill it yet, and I've been using it for weeks. So very, very handy that way. And that brings us to another way of filling a pen. But this one I need to set up a little bit. And I know what you're thinking, boy, that's an odd looking pen. And I'll put a link to the review of this one in the description as well. But I want to show you how to fill a pen that maybe came with a proprietary cartridge, or that you want to use as an eyedropper using a syringe. So what you can do with this pen, you have two options. Well, you've got really a lot more than that. You could buy another cartridge, you could use a pilot converter, or you can do one of the methods that I'm going to do here. One is you can eyedropper the pen. If you're not familiar with that term, you know the little squeeze eyedroppers, like maybe you use one with medical stuff, or literally eye drops, beard oil, whatever it is that you're using. You can use that to get ink out of the bottle and put it into the barrel. Now when you do, it's going to hold a lot of ink, and a lot of people, they like to do that because you don't need a cartridge, you don't need a converter, you simply use the barrel. When you do, you need to check a couple of things. Make sure this is not a hole in the bottom, okay? You need to make sure that this is actually going to be sealed when you screw it to the pen. It needs to be a plastic pen. Metal reacts to ink, so don't use a metal pen to do this. But something like the Plumix or the Preppy I showed you earlier, excellent eyedropper pen. Kaweco Sport, I have a Kaweco Sport that I use that way. Make sure that you put silicone grease on the threads. Some people will go a step further and put an O-ring, a rubber O-ring here. But at the very least, a good dose of silicone grease will keep leaks from happening, and that's something you definitely want to prevent. And I've never had one leak that I've done an eyedropper conversion with. So it can be done, and can be done without having a whole lot of mess. The other option you have is this pen came with a cartridge, but the cartridge is proprietary, and I don't keep pilot cartridges around, ink cartridges, because I use converters with my pilot pens most of the time, except for this one. I don't have a converter for this one. So what I do is I take a syringe, and you can get these. I got mine off of eBay. You can get them from Goulet, different pen stores, Jet Pens, and you just buy an ink syringe. It has a blunt metal tip, and you just get some ink in that pen. Doesn't take very much to fill a cartridge, okay? This is one reason why you might want to refill your cartridges with bottled ink, because the most expensive way to fill your pen is also the simplest way, and that's with a cartridge. But if you I got a little shaky there for some reason. Trying to look around the camera, it's not easy. And you fill this up very slowly, because it is going to fill up very quickly, and that's it. Okay, I'm going to put the rest of the ink back in that bottle. And then you simply install this in the pen just like you would a new cartridge. Make sure that it's seated well so that it does seal and doesn't leak, and that's it. We've just saved having to buy a cartridge and gotten a custom ink in that cartridge. So there you go. That one is done. And in all these pens, whether it's a vac or whether it's a cartridge or a refill, or an eyedropper, or an Aerometric Converter, all those pens were filled without any mess, which for me, talking and reaching around a tripod is hard. If I can do it around a tripod, you can do this easily with any fountain pen without the tripod, right? So don't ever let a filling mechanism intimidate you. Instead, get to know each kind. Each one has pros and cons, how much ink they hold, or how much money they might save you in refilling a cartridge, or the Aerometric versus the Piston, which is a matter of preference. All of these let you choose colors that you're going to like, and that's a great advantage to refilling your pen. God bless you. Have a good rest of the week, and be sure and hit that subscribe and the bell and like and share and all that good stuff, so that you'll be able to come back and catch another review. I'll have another one coming this Friday.